Have you seen this? It's Thomas Mann's The Magic Mountain, but with 8 different endings.
Welcome to Have You Seen This?
The world's only podcast about obscure, overlooked, and misbegotten media.
All discussions will be spoiler heavy.
You have been warned.
This show would not be possible without the support of our patrons. If you would like to support our show, join us at patreon.com/haveyouseenthis. Patrons get the show a week early, and $5 supporters also get access to our Discord. Or you can tip us at our Ko-fi. Visit the link in the show notes. As you may be able to tell, dear listener, we have a full house tonight, but we're missing one. He's probably sorting Legos as we speak. Yes, that's right. Tim is not with us. But I have 2 excellent pinch hitters. I'm sure that you recognize our many-time recurring guest, Bitter Karella, author, artist, and asshole. But we also have someone making a triumphant debut, and this is another artist, not really an asshole, but my very best friend, who I've known for about 7,000 years. This is Moodyferret. Moodyferret, say hi to the folks.
Hi.
Hey! And I know you'll all be fascinated to hear what she has to say about this movie, because this is a weird one. I guess, well, maybe it's weird if you don't watch a ton of horror movies like I know you two do.
No, it's weird even then.
Yeah, I guess I'm jaded if the sight of a woman in a bathtub full of eels makes me go like, "Oh, damn, that's crazy. Wow, that's wild."
I mean, I don't think that was the scene that gave me pause.
There is a lot of excellent usage of the kind of thing to make audiences squirm in their seats. Although, unfortunately, this movie was in theaters and then gone. Like, blink and you'll miss it. Because I remember that the 2 of you wanted to see it again after it debuted. And you're like, where is it? It's like gone from theaters, and you had to drive quite a distance to actually see it in a theater. But, Karella, do you want to tell us what we were talking about?
So we're talking about the Gore Verbinski joint, A Cure for Wellness.
Yeah, I bet you guys don't even remember this shit, because like I said, it was gone in an instant, in spite of being a kind of interesting movie with a lot of really crazy imagery, quite well made, but it just didn't hit with people. And I would be curious to hear you two's thoughts on why that might be. But do either of you want to kind of give the capsule summary of what this movie is about?
I can try that, because I can. What's the word I'm looking for? I know 100% that I've seen it more times than Karella has.
Well, I do not doubt. So yes, I will defer to you.
Honestly, I think I've seen this movie more than anyone else in the universe.
It's possible. You know, honestly, like, you should get like a personal thank you letter from Gore Verbinski.
I should. Because I've probably seen this movie at least 20 times. Well, no, actually, that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, Gore, if you're out there, like, come on. This is obviously your number 1 super fan, at least where A Cure for Wellness is concerned. I think your number 1 super fan for Rango might also be on the mic now, but
that would be that would be Bitter Karella, but yeah.
Yeah, I do enjoy
Yes,
Rango.
indeed. Fine movie, Rango. But Moody, do you want to, like I said, what's the log line of this movie? What's it supposedly about?
So basically, it's about a young rising star businessman. He's kind of a cutthroat asshole, played by Dane DeHaan.
Dane DeHaan.
And otherwise known as Valerian, although this cat actually came out before Valerian.
Speaking of flops.
Basically, he ends up traveling to Switzerland to try to bring back one of the CEOs of the company to use as a scapegoat to blame for some problems that are happening in the company. And he ends up stuck at the same sanitarium that the CEO has been in. And there's a lot of really weird stuff going on in the sanitarium. And that's probably the shortest summary I can give it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Hey, short and effective. Yeah, that does it pretty well. And Karella, since I know that you have had many opinions on him in the past, and we'll all weigh in as the show goes on. But who is Gore Verbinski?
So Gore Verbinski is he is a movie director of movie films. You may know him best as the guy behind the Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End, Pirates of the Caribbean, the third movie, I think.
All of them?
I think he did all of them. He also is behind Rango and The Ring and The Lone Ranger. So he's had a long and storied career in making rambling nonsense. That's kind of his thing.
The one exception, I don't think The Ring was rambling at all.
I actually am going to disagree on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, having rewatched The Ring relatively recently, I noticed his trademark rambling happened in that one as well. I do still think The Ring is a fantastic movie. It's pretty much defined the look of modern horror.
It's the only horror movie that gave me nightmares.
Yeah, I mean, when it came out in around
2001?
2001?
Or 2002.
2002, I believe. And of course, to clarify really quickly, you were talking about the American remake of Ringo.
Yes.
And this one starred Naomi Watts.
Not to be confused with Rango.
Right, Rango was a different one.
He did a Ringo and he did a Rango.
That's why he got the
Oprah.
job. They were like, hey, this guy made Rango. We should let him do Ringo.
Except that was... Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one Rango came after.
Several years after.
Yeah, but...
Well, now what they can do is let him make a Ringo Starr biopic simply titled Ringo.
Yeah, I don't know how Ringo would look with a blue filter, though.
Yeah, that was his signature thing in the American version of The Ring, is he is the guy that
And
invented...
A Cure for Wellness.
Yeah, he does that again in A Cure for Wellness. He invented the blue filter, which is pretty much defined the look of horror movies since, at least for the 15 years after The Ring. I'm not really sure what the look of horror is currently, because I haven't seen a whole lot of...
Well, we have. They're just not good.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot, just not good ones.
I mean, I would say the Ring casts a long shadow, and we're still under it at this point.
And I still think A Cure for Wellness has it's similar. Aside from the fact that The Ring is actually a normal movie length, and I don't think anything else he did is a normal length. I think everything else he did is 3 times longer than it should be.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, the man has
normal, hour and a. I don't know.
The Ring, I'll say that The Ring is because, well, here's the thing about Gore Verbinski. He is a man who doesn't really understand how to put together a coherent movie, but he understands the importance of spectacle. So, the movies...
atmosphere.
Yeah, his movies are just like, hey, do you like a lot of crazy shit? Well, here, have some more. And... how much you enjoy just this endless buffet of garbage thrown at the wall really defines how much you enjoy Verbinski's work.
Well, I would use that description for the Pirates movies. To be fair, when it comes to his attempts at horror, like The Ring and the one we're talking about, I think he is very good at getting imagery that really gets under your skin.
Well, yes, I'm not saying this is bad, because I love Rango. It is an extremely rambling and incoherent film that's got that's not very well plotted, but
it's so fun though.
It's fun.
Yeah, I think that's what we can say about all those movies. They're not well plotted, but they're fun. They're interesting. They, at least for me, well, I can't speak about all the Pirates movies. I didn't love those, but The Ring, Rango, and A Cure for Wellness all kept my attention through the rambling.
Yeah. The first Pirates movie, which, again, very, very oh, why are they going back to the island? Okay.
Oh, God. The second time they end up in that fucking cave in the first one, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me!
Yeah, that's Gore Verbinski. He's like, oh, why not? He's not a man who likes to tighten his films, with a precision edge. He's like, yeah, whatever. Sometimes.
Well, we should also say that, and maybe you could make a case for auteurism when it comes to Verbinski. I won't be making that case because I haven't seen enough of his work to argue it. But let's also keep in mind that he's also worked a few times with screenwriters like Terry Rossio. Terry Rossio being very important to the success of those Pirates of the Caribbean films. As I recall, he did work with Terry Rossio again on a movie that Karella actually didn't mention because I think a lot of people would prefer to forget it, The Lone Ranger.
I haven't seen that one.
Right,
I've
nobody
heard it's
did.
not good.
You haven't seen it either.
No, I haven't seen
Okay,
it.
so no one here's seen it.
Yeah, and that one came out and flopped pretty hard, or at least it was considered a flop because it didn't make back its massive production budget. It is also deeply cursed at this point because it stars both Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer.
Oh, the rapist and the cannibal.
Right. So, little, just like a touch cursed. And that is a movie which runs, according to this, 149 minutes.
Oh,
So
wow.
it could be that maybe, because I remember the Pirates films being like pretty sprawling. And maybe Rossio, like Verbinski, is a guy who kind of likes to spread out movie-wise, because it sounds like that's what they did with Lone Ranger kind of unsuccessfully. I don't believe that Rossio had anything to do with Cure for Wellness. That was this was co-written with Justin Haythe, who wrote Revolutionary Road and also Red Sparrow with Jennifer Lawrence, and Bohemian Rhapsody, which was a big success. That's all I'll say about that movie. But yeah, so maybe Justin Haythe is also a guy who doesn't like to be circumspect, because this one is sprawling, and I know, as you've said on the show, Karella, and I know you've said on the past, Verbinski is also a guy who likes to take his time. I'll say that this one, to me, is, yes, it is languidly paced. There wasn't a bunch of stuff in it where I was going like, oh my God, just cut this shit out. Who cares? Like it contributes to the themes and the mood. So it is pretty absorbing, even if it is kind of meandering, but I don't know, maybe audiences disagreed. I'll say that this one, if you do like horror, especially horror with fucked up imagery, is worth checking out. There are a lot of things to admire about it, even though it didn't hit.
And on that note of it being long, but still, not going, oh, why is this in? This should be cut out. I don't know if you've seen the deleted scenes on the DVD, Blu-ray, whatever. There's sort of a little montage of deleted scenes. And honestly, I was thinking, some of these should have been left in. The one scene that actually gives the main character some character development, for example, was cut out. And I was thinking, well, this should have been left in. So I started to make a joke about, oh, they should have cut this instead. And then I realized I couldn't think of anything that I thought should have been cut instead.
Yeah. And it's funny because character development always seems to be the first thing to go in movies when they start trimming. It's like, we don't need that. Just give us the broad strokes of the story and we're fine. Even though it can really help a movie out. And it's true that that Lockhart, the main character in this, is fairly flat apart from something traumatic that happened in his childhood.
The guy doesn't even have a first name.
Well, I think that's by design.
True.
I know that's by design. That's kind of my point, is he's sort of like a caricature of a business executive.
Well, he's an archetype.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have a first name. Even not only is a first name never used for him, in the credits he doesn't have a first name.
The platonic ideal of a dickhead finance bro.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though he looks like a little boy. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I believe that this was a very conscious choice because our main protagonist and our kind of she's not a
Deuteragonist?
Yeah, thank you. Oh my God. See, this is why I had you on, because you can supply the smart words that don't live in my brain. Mia Goth's character.
Yeah.
She is also incredibly childlike. And I did check up on Dane DeHaan. He has continued working even though this one didn't hit and Valerian was a big flop. He is legitimately talented. So I'm pleased to see that his career has continued. And, you know, for all I know, maybe he doesn't want to make like any like bizarre blockbuster sci-fi films or anything like that.
I do think I seem to remember reading he became, I could be imagining this, I don't know, but I feel like I read he became more interested sort of in being in some odd shows. Mm-hmm. And most of the movies he's been in, other than Valerian, which was trying to be a blockbuster, most of the other movies he's been in have been very either art house or just very niche. He hasn't really, other than Valerian, which was still a big flop, I believe, he hasn't really been in anything really big.
Well, actually, he does have a part in Oppenheimer, which was one of the two big hits. Okay. One of the two big hits of 2023, basically, along with Barbie. So I think it's a good sign for the guy's career, and maybe he's like, hey, I'm going to pick stuff that's like a little more interesting, even though I'm not necessarily the heroic protagonist. What's the book where the main character is named hero protagonist?
Oh shoot, that's Snow Crash.
Snow Crash, that's right. Because as soon as I said heroic protagonist, that's what it made me think of. Cure for Wellness. We have our capsule summary, and
don't forget the antagonist, Jason Isaacs.
Oh, of course.
Because he's kind of a well-known actor, I believe.
Oh yeah, he's definitely like we all know Jason Isaacs, and we're glad he's not in Harry Potter shit anymore. But yes, Jason Isaacs, who you love as a villain, very good in this. But yeah, so we're at a creepy medical facility where things are not quite what they seem, but there's definitely some. Well, I don't know how to sum it up, because what I want to say really glibly is like some kind of weird Nazi shit, but it's not Nazi shit. It's like it goes, but you know, if you trace the roots of Nazism, like it goes back quite a ways. Just like the fucked upness at the heart of this movie goes back like 200 years.
Yeah.
Easy.
And the obsession with purity.
Yes. The motif of fluids, specifically water, is massive in this movie. A lot of flowing, trickling. Make sure you go to the bathroom before you watch it.
Especially if you're watching it in the theater. Well, not like that's going to happen again anytime soon.
Well, you never know. They could screen it at the Cinematheque when they do like a Verbinski retrospective, and I think that would be a fine evening. But first of all, because it's so prominent in the film, like, what do we make of all the water imagery contained in it? Because yes, it does have a lot to do with purity, and you have a lot of like very wealthy people going to this facility to, I guess, like strain all the toxins out.
Supposedly, yeah, that's kind of what they're told anyway. Mm-hmm.
And they seem really willing to buy into it. I wonder if Gwyneth Paltrow would go to this place.
I mean, there's a lot going on in this movie. Like, obviously, there's themes of like blood purity happening. It takes place in like the Swiss Alps and
the German part.
Yes. It's very hard not to like draw the connection with all these like very Aryan-looking doctors talking with their accents and in their white smocks to like, you know, the horrors of Nazi eugenics experimentation. There's also a lot of thematic elements involving like you know, Wall Street and wealth and the, you know, greed, accumulation, that sort of thing. So this is a movie that has lots of themes, lots of motifs, lots of symbolism, and it's very hard to it's a weird thing where things are kind of, you're swimming around in theme-like material.
Swimming literally.
Yeah, like everything in this movie, you're just like looking at it and be like, this means something. This is saying something.
I mean, yeah, the two very prominent animal motifs. There's the eels, and there's stags or deer. And
Mm-hmm.
for the life of me, I can't completely figure out what the deal is with the stag motif that's throughout the movie.
Yeah, that's exactly
You
it.
could-
It's like, I think, like, it's the thing about this film is it's there's been so much care and attention to detail in crafting something that is almost intentionally incoherent in some ways, because it really is like Gore Verbinski is like, eels, that's my motif. Put eels in it. Put eels
And what
everywhere.
do the
And it's
eels
like, what do they
mean?
mean? I don't know.
I don't know. They're creepy.
Yeah,
They are creepy.
yeah. And
I mean, you know, eels are just doing what eels do. You
Yeah,
can't really
yeah.
blame them. But people don't like them.
from a plot standpoint, they don't make any sense because throughout the movie, it's implied that they go to this, like, Dane DeHaan goes to this Swiss core spa where all these rich people are getting
And they're all business executives,
Yeah.
I believe.
yeah. So all these rich people
Yeah,
are getting
and in fact,
hosed,
yeah, and
or-
this is yeah, they really are. And this is called out explicitly at one point because, and I didn't notice this the first time I watched it, but there's a trio of three, and well, everyone there is elderly patients that that Lockhart kind of connects with when he arrives at the facility, and the one guy is from Sweden, and the other one is he's from the UK, but he's of Indian ancestry,
Yeah.
or as his friend jokes, a Brahmin, and that's like the top caste. So everyone here is a wealthy person with like tremendous power, and you know they can afford to be at this facility for, well, they think they're going to be there for 2 weeks or whatever, but you know, so these are very, very, very rich people.
yes.
And
And
yeah, the woman, didn't they say she was the head of Xerox? Or
she says 20
Yeah,
years
she
at
was-
Xerox.
Xerox, yeah.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
is sort of part of the theme seems to be this idea of, like, you know, rich people who have, you know, accumulated vast fortunes, commanded empires, but you know, but in doing so, having done, you know, horrible things, and now somehow believing that they can be made pure again. You know, this is a form of absolution by coming to this facility, which is you know, and that's kind of the selling point, I guess, that they're giving these people. The idea is like, if you come here, you know, we'll heal your body, and in doing so, absolve your sins. And that's kind of the hook that keeps them there, it seems. And so that Dr. Vollmer, played by Jason Isaacs, as the head of the facility, can drain them of their precious bodily
I was going to
fluids.
say that the irony is that there's all this water imagery, but the people are dying of dehydration
Yeah, yeah. So
because they're being literally drained dry.
yeah, the actual what is actually going on here is it's kind of it's difficult to really pin it down because I don't think Gore Verbinski 100% knows what's happening.
I mean, they claim it's hydrotherapy
yeah,
in
but
various forms.
right. But I'm saying is, like, if you actually try to plot out what is happening here, it gets very jumbled because, like, they imply, like, oh, the water in the aquifer is special. That's why the eels here live so long. But in other scenes, they're like, the water is special because the eels are here. So it's like, well, what's important? The eels are the water. What is the magic thing here? You know.
And I'm still trying to figure out in one of the most grotesque scenes in the movie, which basically involves force feeding Lockhart through a giant tube
Yeah.
that would likely in real life destroy his esophagus and windpipe. He's force fed water that they show it's dirty water full of eels, and I don't know if that's the normal process or if that's just being done to torture him.
Well, that's actually what they call raw water, and there's
Oh
a reason
yeah,
it
that's
costs
right.
so
And
much
for a while,
money.
people in Silicon Valley were buying stuff like that.
I wonder if they stopped when they all got the shits or something.
I mean, again, this movie is probably, like, even though it's more relevant than ever now, considering, like, you know, as now that we're like, oh wow, look, we're seeing how dumb rich people really are every day, you know. So
That's true. But to go back to the point that I wanted to make, because, you know, of course, Mike, you're right that it isn't strictly a coherent movie. And I think that they have tried to give themselves a little bit of an out by, especially near the beginning, hammering on the idea of dreams and people dreaming.
Yes.
You have because you have
ballerina figure.
Yeah, you have the little ballerina figure. Oh, she's dancing, but her eyes are closed. She doesn't realize that she's dreaming. And I think that carries through to the end of the movie when our protagonists are able to make a decision, like, and it sounds kind of trite because it is sort of trite, like, yo, do you want to stay asleep, sheeple, or do you want to wake up?
I mean, Mia Goth literally says, her eyes are open now.
Yes, yeah. So it's not a subtle movie, in spite of it being, like we've kind of implied here, like, despite it being incredibly dreamlike and not hewing exactly to like a lockstep, A to B to C narrative. It is supposed to feel like a dream, I think, because, and like you said earlier, like, Lockhart is an archetype. He's a businessman. He's a salaryman. These characters are all fairly flat. Mia Goth plays everyone's favorite kind of woman, a woman who is hot and yet mildly developmentally disabled.
I'll say.
And it would be easy to condemn this character, like, off the bat, but she's kind of interesting. Like, and Mia Goth is actually quite good in this part, even though it's not, I don't think it's necessarily a strenuous part to play, but she does inhabit this character. So,
I mean, on that line, along that line, same line of thought, I have to say, I think all of the acting is spectacular in this movie.
Everyone is really good.
And one thing this is kind of going back to what you were saying about it being dreamlike. I would go beyond that and say the whole movie's just, it's surrealism.
That's a good point.
Right, and
right.
Was the book Magic Mountain surreal? I haven't read it, but I believe that was pretty surreal, right?
I've also not read Thomas Mann's Der Zauberberg, which apparently is this movie is extremely tenuously based upon.
Yes.
In the sense that involves someone going to a sanitarium.
Well, and beyond that, I saw an early script, and Lockhart's name originally was Castorp, which is the name of the protagonist from that book.
Right.
So the connection's not just one you're imagining.
No, I mean, I know it actually is based. I mean, I know that Gore Verbinski like literally was like, oh yeah, the Magic Mountain. I got the idea from there. But I think there's very little of the original book in this movie.
Plot-wise, probably, but the book is pretty surreal, my understanding, right?
Yeah, like, and I don't know a lot about the book either, apart from it being his follow-up to Death in Venice, but with a younger protagonist who eventually ends up and finishes his time in the sanitarium by going away to war, the First World War. And it does play with motifs of time, which this movie does, because in a way in the sanitarium they have managed to slow time down almost to a complete crawl. So, but I don't know if those themes are also present in the Magic Mountain, because, like, as I've said many times in the show, I'm not actually literate. I've never read a book in my life. I'm letting you know. I'm Jen, I'm 45, and I never fucking learned how to read.
Well, books are real nerd shit.
Hey, I happen to like reading, I just haven't read that book.
Yeah, this isn't real nerd here. This is a very dreamlike movie. I think, in general, Gore Verbinski's films tend to be kind of, like I said, he's very into the spectacle. He just throws whatever on the screen. That works really well in his horror movies. Yeah. This one as well as in The Ring.
Who can forget the video sequence from The Ring?
Yeah, but the thing is, the Ring as well, if you watch it with a more critical eye, you'll be like, a lot of the stuff in it doesn't make sense. It doesn't really need to, because it gives it that nightmarish quality that you also get in this one. It's like you always feel like you're slightly off kilter because things just don't add up. They don't flow naturally from A to B to C.
And yet, I've noticed a big difference in The Ring. The protagonists notice that and seem horrified by it. In this movie, Lockhart, for example, he's wandering around the steam bath, and a deer walks by, and it doesn't seem to faze him.
Yeah, I feel like The Ring is
like he's sleepwalking.
Yeah, the Ring is a movie where it's like people who are sane but dealing with insane things, whereas this is a movie about a guy who is like
he's out of touch with reality.
He believes he's like going insane. Like the protagonists in The Ring never go insane, where this is an entire movie about Dane DeHaan losing his marbles.
Yeah, and if you don't believe that, just look at his face in the last scene. That is the craziest grin I've ever seen on him.
Yeah.
That grin is pure psychosis.
But he has all his teeth.
Yes, he does. He has all his teeth.
Yeah, which is another thing is like, well, it's a weird movie because it feels like it should be like building, like things should be constantly getting weirder. But in this movie, they start pretty weird and they just go all over the place like a pinball. So you never really, you don't feel like it's really escalating. It's just kind of just like, you're in a state of like kind of elevated weirdness that just persists.
I mean, I feel like that's the largest bulk of the movie follows that, but then once you get to the final act of the movie, that's when to me it goes completely off the rails.
That is true. Because...
I mean, up to that it's kind of okay, it's weird, but it's got some coherence to it, and then the final act you're just like, what even just happened?
The final act is when, the Gore Verbinski is like, we're just going to do high camp,
Right, and this is where it gets like, this is where it is like the most gothic and like all the flowers in the attic shit they've been hinting at throughout the movie.
Well, like
so pays gothic. Off.
Well, again, it's...
Yeah, and it does, and because it does come down to like a slugging match between two men over a woman, it's like, okay, well, this is like the blockbuster movie part of it. Although this isn't really, they made this for $40 million, which is not a massive number, especially not compared to some of the movies that Verbinski has worked on.
But you wouldn't know watching it. It looks like an expensive movie.
It looks fabulous.
Yeah,
this
every scene is just perfectly shot, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's stunningly well shot. And
the locations are beautiful and creepy.
Yeah, Switzerland, beautiful country.
Well, what I like about this movie is this is a movie that, like, again, it's very dedicated to spectacle, and knowing it's a horror movie, it spares no expense in every grotesque detail, and small things really make it. Like, there's a scene where, for example, Lockhart goes to visit a local veterinarian to try and get some information about
why the people are losing their teeth.
Yeah, he brings in some medical charts and is like, can you interpret what this is? And what I just like about this bit is a veterinarian comes out to talk to him, and he's got like just a bloody arm. Like his arm is just covered in blood, and because he just had his hand up a cow's ass or something. And
this is not a James Herriot story, though.
He disemboweled the cow.
No, he does that afterwards. Yeah. Like he appears and he's got a bloody arm. He hasn't touched the cow yet. The cow is in the stirrups and everything at this point. What I'm saying is it's a small detail, but like I like just the fact that like when they're making this, it's like, look, we're making a fucking gross ass horror movie. Why go halfway? Everything we're just gonna throw in these things constantly. So there's always visual treats for you.
I mean, I'm still wondering why the vet felt the need to put the cow out of its misery by slicing its stomach open.
Oh, that's easy.
Because it's gross.
It would be gross to see.
Because you could see all the eels spilling out, and then you see the fetus, and you can tell there's eels in the fetus.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
Yeah, exactly. Spectacle. It's all spectacle. It's like you watch this movie, you're paying money to go to see a movie. Are you not entertained? That's the kind of movie that's...
Well, couple things... sorry, I cut you off, Mike. Why don't you finish your sentence?
Yeah, I'm going to say, like, it reminds me, it puts me in the mindset of a similar movie that is dedicated to the spectacle. This is a spiritual successor, you might say, to another one of my favorite films, Nothing But Trouble.
Oh!
No, let me finish. Both of these films are about an asshole yuppie who goes on a harrowing descent into the underworld where the rules do not apply, and they end up fighting a monster man with a fucked up nose.
This is true.
Yeah.
Oh
This is
shit,
true,
you're
but
right.
Nothing But Trouble, I got bored.
Well, that's because you have no taste. Nothing But Trouble is a sound and sight spectacular.
Well, to be fair, Karella, Nothing But Trouble is a refined taste. It's Nothing But Trouble is not for everyone. It's kind of like the lutefisk of movies.
Right.
Very few people enjoy eating it.
Of
But
course, judging from how quickly A Cure for Wellness left theaters, I don't think a lot of people enjoyed that one either.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying these are movies that are thematic. There are thematic parallels in these films. They're of a type. One, of course.
no,
is
that's
like-
actually a really good parallel, because I feel like you would also call this movie Valkenvania.
Yeah. It's well, there obviously there are different tones to the films. Dan Aykroyd and Gore Verbinski, take different approaches. Dan Aykroyd obviously kind of going from
It's
the
absurdist.
right, but from the comedy.
Well, they're both
route,
fairly
whereas-
maximalist, I would say.
Yeah. They're both very dedicated to the idea of look, you're going to a movie to see things, and they just incredible set dressing in both of these films.
I'll agree with
Mr.
that.
Bone Stripper, for example.
Yes, exactly. Mr. Bone Stripper, a great scene. I guess in this one the closest equivalent is probably the eel, iron lung that they have at the end. But there's a lot of.
There's that. Well, there's also the dentist scene.
Oh, the dentist scene. That's true.
I think honestly, the dentist scene is the one that's probably the hardest to watch for most people, because they literally show. Well, you literally see the drill going into his tooth and the tooth shattering.
Yeah, they
and
don't,
blood spurting out. I mean, they don't
flinch. They show it all.
Yeah, trigger warning for anyone who has dental trauma.
But you might want to close your eyes during that scene.
Yeah.
Hey, but you know what? I think because Moody, you and I both had substantial orthodontic work in our youth, we were probably like, oh yeah, I've been there. It's rough. Yeah.
I mean, even
sucks,
the scene
man.
where, speaking of dental trauma, there's even a scene where he pulls out a tooth. He realizes one of his teeth is loose, and he pulls it right out, roots and all.
Yeah.
You see the nerve coming out and snapping.
Oh yeah, like that. And my compliments to the effects people, because the little bit of flesh that stretches and then snaps, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a nice touch.
Oh,
Now that's how you do gore, Damien Leone. You dumb asshole.
What did he do? What did he work on?
The Terrifier movies.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, okay.
I heard they weren't very
Yeah.
terrifying.
Well, I've seen one of them, and it's not.
Oh well.
Yeah, and let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and all non-binary friends, these two know their horror. They're hard to impress, and they know it's good.
I mean, I'm still gonna say I've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of horror movies, and only one of them has actually, literally scared me, and that was, thank you, Gore Verbinski, The Ring.
There you go.
I think this one is. It's definitely it's similar to The Ring in the sense that there's a lot of weird nightmare imagery that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It didn't scare me like The Ring did, but I don't think it's. Well, it's more surreal than horror.
Right.
I think.
Well, also the Ring when it came out was there was nothing like that. This movie's also pretty singular. It's
not. I don't think it's meant. It doesn't have. I don't think it's meant to evoke visceral horror the same way that The Ring was.
No, I mean
this is more of a creeping strangeness,
right?
But it's not going to necessarily scare you. The Ring has jump scare.
Yeah.
Well, it has to me one of the scariest cutscene, or not cutscene. one of the scariest shots ever, which is when you see the corpse in the closet, and that's way near the beginning of the movie too.
Well, The Ring is a much more traditional horror movie. It's got a ghost in it. I think this one probably is a harder sell to people because you're like, it's a horror movie. Oh, what's happens in it? A guy gets trapped in a weird spa, and a lot of people would just be like, like a lot of people, like all the Santa Clauses of the world, are like, I don't like a horror movie.
I mean, people who like
ghost.
People who like the Terrifier movies and just want that kind of whatever you call that are not
unmotivated gore.
Yeah,
just the gore and not much else. They're not. I don't think they'd appreciate the creepy. Yeah, I don't atmosphere. Sorry, vibes.
I don't know that this was actually really promoted as a horror film.
I don't know what it was promoted as. I mean,
I do not to. Sorry to cut you off, but I do remember when this movie was about to come out. They did tease it with a very weird teaser trailer, kind of pushing like the weird creepy sanitarium and medical,
and then probably
themes.
the little blue vial, right?
Right. Yeah. And what that told me about the movie is that they were kind of putting a healthy marketing push into it because they probably knew that they had something very weird on their hands, and they're like, okay, how are we going to sell this to people? Okay, well, let's build intrigue by dropping this teaser with freaky imagery in it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came out, I remember, like, the feeling in the movie press is like, oh man, like, Gore Verbinski really fucked up here, like, big flop, like, man, he really just took a huge L with this one.
Such a shame.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because, and if nothing else, I hope that my show will convince people that a lot of times, like, the movie that wins, like, the Golden Raspberry in a certain year, it's not always a bad movie. It's often that people just didn't vibe with it for whatever reason. And people didn't vibe with this one for whatever reason. But, we're here to evangelize it a bit now that it's 10 years later.
So, this is far from a good movie, but it is a very interesting movie. I think part of what is notable about it is that it is, for all intents and purposes, it's an original movie. It is. I mean, in theory, based on a book, but like it's pretty much all original. I mean, it's not like really based on a pre-existing media property. It's not part of a franchise. It's a sort of weirdness that you rarely see in a big budget mainstream film.
I'm actually surprised that our regular theater, which, our typical, because we have a little art house theater too. I'm surprised that our normal theater played it. Even if they did maybe a week.
Well, yeah, because I think that maybe they were hoping for like a big horror hit. Like, oh, it's a horror movie. Like, those tend to do like pretty well.
I mean, honestly, another factor that this movie had against it was released around the same time as Get Out. And the reason I remember that is because Karella and I had gone to see Get Out, which is really good. If you haven't seen that, anyone listening, I recommend that one for sure. We had gone to see that, and while we were at the theater, I noticed a poster for A Cure for Wellness, which had the blue vial and Mia Goth kind of floating in it. And I remember saying, "Oh, what's that movie? I haven't heard of it." And Karella had seen a preview, I guess online, that I hadn't seen. So when we drove home, he said, "Well, here, I'll show you the preview." And the preview hooked me so much that I literally said, "Let's go back to the theater and see this movie." And so we ended up going right back and seeing this one.
And you know what? Like, you were probably smart to do that because it then disappeared from theaters.
Yeah. So it wasn't... you mentioned before that we had to drive far. The truth is, the actual story is that it wasn't that we had to drive far to see it. It was that once we saw it this once locally, we couldn't find it playing anywhere like the next week. We couldn't find it.
Oh,
anywhere.
Okay.
I was willing to drive 90 miles to Sacramento to see it again. It wasn't playing there.
Oh, wow.
I was willing
yeah,
to.
so
I liked it that much, but I only got to see it on the big screen once.
Cinematheque, book this movie.
It literally disappeared, overnight.
Yeah.
No, it did, because I remember you folks talking about that when it came out.
And I guess it's appropriate to come out and see as a double feature with Get Out because they're both in their own ways about the horrors of white supremacy.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. And I think what makes this movie unique, even though it might be tempting to kind of write it off as kind of tropey psychological / gothic horror, the themes within almost have kind of a Matrix style subversiveness, where it isn't take the red pill or take the blue pill. It's do you want to drink the eel water, or do you want to take your mildly developmentally disabled friend on your bike and leave? That's just my read anyway.
Well, I don't think he left with his brain intact.
Well,
I mean, that look on his face, that was...
I mean, he's been through a lot. I will say that.
By that point in the movie, we've been through, I believe, 2 fake-out endings.
Oh, yes, that's right. This move, that's the one thing that I was a little annoyed with the movie, is it has two false climaxes, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of false climaxes. I mean... That's
a long time to edge.
There were 2 scenes where I was sure the movie was over. It would have made a decent ending. Mm-hmm. And then it just kept going.
Yeah. It's a sort of film where because I remember in the theater, and it was to the movie's credit, like I said, there's always something interesting happening. So I wasn't bored, but at a certain point I was checking my watch because I was like, look, statistically this movie has to end soon. What is going on here?
It's over 2 hours long.
Yeah, but I'm saying is after the second fake out ending, I was like, oh, come on, how much more can there possibly be?
And then it goes off the rails and you realize there is a whole lot more.
Yeah, there is a lot more. I did think the first fake out ending was kind of neat because, they have Dane DeHaan basically penning a letter, which is, of course, echoes the letter that they originally received in the beginning of the film from the guy that he has sent to retrieve.
Mr. Green?
Mr. Pembroke.
Oh, yeah, Green's a different guy. Sorry.
Right. So he has to... So he's penning this letter, and after he's done writing it, there's kind of a beat, and then suddenly he's kind of realizing that he's been hornswoggled. He's been brainwashed, and now he's breaking out of that. But what I liked about that was just he's writing the letter, and then... he does not put a period at the end of the sentence on the final sentence in his letter, and then he kind of and then there's a few beats before it's revealed to the audience that he's breaking out of his brainwashing. But I did
that's when he goes and rips the cast off.
Yeah, that's when he
realizes his leg is not broken.
Yes.
Yeah.
So once again, what he believed is true is not true. But I did think that. But I thought. I liked the bit with not putting the period because as soon as that happened, I was like, I know what he's not brainwashed. He's breaking out. This is a false ending, which I thought was a nice, subtle way to telegraph that obviously, I guess.
That one, yeah, the second false ending was a little less obviously false.
Right.
It really felt like the ending, but a kind of a bummer of an ending.
Yeah, well, at that point, it was fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Because it's another false ending? Okay, but no, there's going to be a monster fight now.
Well, describe for the listener, and obviously we're well past spoilers at this point. What would you describe as the second false ending of the movie?
So I'll take this one, since Karella's been doing a lot more talking than me.
Get his ass.
So by this point in the movie, they've revealed how people are drinking all this water, but they're still getting dehydrated, which is causing their teeth to fall out. Although I'm pretty sure that's not the first symptom of dehydration, but in this movie, it's a big symptom of it. And so we've already had Lockhart realize my leg isn't actually broken. By the way, the broken leg is what got him stuck in the sanitarium in the first place, because he was in a car accident trying to leave. And more deer imagery at that point. Anyway, so at this point, one of his teeth has fallen out. He then, after trying to escape, got caught, and a sadistic dentist working for Dr. Vollmer knocked out more of his teeth in one of the hardest scenes to watch that we already discussed. And there's a scene where he and Hannah are sitting together, and he had given Hannah the little ballerina from his deceased mother that, she's dreaming, she doesn't realize it, etc., etc. So he and Hannah are sitting out in the yard on the edge of this fountain that they show him looking into various times. It's sort of a well, I guess you would say. So they're sitting on it talking, and Hannah's holding the ballerina and saying her eyes are open now, indicating she's suddenly realizing, hey, there's a whole world out there, and I've been trapped in here.
My childhood was not normal.
Yes, realizing that, hey, I'm basically a prisoner, and my life is really messed up. And Dane Lockhart, smiles, and he's got all of his teeth, realizing, they must have, either they gave him, my assumption was always that they gave him fake teeth. I guess you could also interpret it as the other scenes were dreams. It's not really clear. But he smiles, this sort of very just, how would you explain his look in that? He looks kind of wary.
He doesn't look like a well man, let's put it that way.
He looks like he's given up, and he has the look of defeat. He smiles, he's got all his teeth, he looks defeated, he looks brainwashed. And the assumption I had at that point was, the movie's over. It ended with Hannah sort of waking up, realizing what's going on, while Lockhart has become a prisoner, and he's been, he lost, he's defeated, he's stuck there now. And that was, what I thought. I thought, okay, well, that makes sense as an ending, because it's kind of a downer of a movie anyway.
Yeah, and that could be a place to end it, because it would be like an appropriate downer ending for like a psychological horror film, showing our protagonist who'd originally fought against the system that was keeping him captive, and just kind of giving up and giving into it. But the thing is in the movie, we've had all these hints at the history of not just the facility, but of the family that owned the facility. This Baron Jason Isaacs, I forget the family name.
It's Reichmer, because, we have to make sure people realize the Hitler connection.
Right. So, and there's been all this imagery in the film about kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. There's been a lot of imagery and
all the allusions to Baron von Reichmer having tried to reproduce with his sister.
Right.
And the baby's not surviving because, he's trying to achieve pure offspring by reproducing with his sister. The babies are dying because they're so inbred they can't survive.
Right. So they're making little fucked up Habsburg fetuses. This is alluded to when the one guy disembowels the cow and a fetus also spills out with all the eels. Yeah, and what I was going to say is that there's also a reference to when the villagers freaked out and burned the Baron and his castle. They burned his bride, and I forget exactly how this coffin birth happens, but I don't know. They tear out her fetus or something because she was pregnant, and then they specifically say they threw it into the aquifer.
Yeah, they say how the birth happened. They just said, they tear it out and throw it in the aquifer.
Yeah, and the aquifer, of course, is where the Baron attributes all the supposedly healing properties of his facility. And throughout this movie, you've been reminded, like, oh, there's something really fucked up in the water. So at the point when they mentioned that, and I had seen this movie before, it had been a few years, so I didn't remember like any of it, but I did remember like the climax of the film, which I felt at the time when I saw it was like kind of weirdly tacked on. But watching it this time, I was like, oh, well, they have to resolve this tension where you're like, okay, well, something's going to happen between the Baron and his quote unquote, as he refers to her, he's like, she's like a daughter to me. Yeah. And it's like, well, no, dude, that's actually your daughter. You sick
Yeah.
fuck. Gee, I wonder if that's going to pay off. And sure enough, it does, because there's a point in the movie also where she experiences menarche. So, oh no, she got her first period. So there's grass in the field. So let's play.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no. So, and the point in the movie where and I think it was because I had seen it before, when they mentioned like, oh yeah, they threw the fetus into the aquifer. I was like, oh, and that was Mia Goth. Okay.
That was a slightly developmentally disabled
sexy
deuteragonist.
Yes. Yeah. So in light of all that, it's interesting because I probably would have agreed with you around the time the movie came out. That's like, what's with all these like kind of multiple endings? Like, you could have ended the movie at like any of these times. Given like time and distance and a rewatch, I'm like, oh no, like the final act of the movie definitely makes sense, because this is the culmination of all the stuff we've been hinting at with the fucked up family history of Baron
you're raising a very good
whatever.
point that, honestly, I think to fully get all of the nuances of this movie, because so much is shoved into it, you might need to watch it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Because
because
my first viewing in the theater, I didn't pick up on everything, which is why both of those fake out endings kind of got me.
Right. I mean, again,
Yeah.
it's a movie that thrives on just putting everything in there. It gets very gothic, where it's like, hey, it's not enough that we got this fucked up guy with his blood purity. He's also 300 years old because he's drinking the magic water, and also he's fucking his daughter, and also he's got a fucked up weird monster face.
Because he was burned.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's like,
because the villagers burned him the first time he tried to do his experiments.
Yeah, this is not like this is a movie that goes for the gusto. It's like, there's like, why stop at one fucked up thing when you can have 8?
And let's not forget that the water, he even says at one point, you find out why everyone's dying of dehydration. The water is poisonous if it's not filtered.
Oh yeah, there's that.
So that's
yeah.
And by filtered, well, my understanding is what he means by filtering it is basically force feeding it, or the people drinking it and then putting them in these sweat boxes. What do you call those things?
Like a sweat box.
It's basically a sweat box, and then drinking their sweat out of these little blue vials.
Yeah. Which I guess makes you live 300 years, I think is the
so it's not all bad.
Yeah. So yeah, there's
Gwyneth Paltrow would totally do this.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole lot going on in this movie. It's can get confusing.
Probably more plot lines than necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it can get confusing because you see Pembroke die like 4 times.
Wait. You don't actually see? I mean, yeah, Lockhart thinks he's dead when he sees him submerged in the tank, but then they show Lockhart in the tank and they're breathing the water.
Okay, well, okay, fine. If you do not read that as a death scene, then you see Pembroke die twice.
If you say so.
Yeah, you see him get fed to eels, and then he's back again, and then he dies again.
Wait, he wasn't the one who they fed to eels?
Yes, they throw him in his body, and he gets eaten by eels.
That wasn't him.
That was him. And then he goes down.
I thought it was the woman.
No, both of them. Then he goes down, because you see her die multiple times, too. Then he goes down to the cop, and he's saying Pembroke's dead, and then Pembroke shows up not dead.
Okay,
and then you see him die again later on.
I'm pretty sure the only reason he thinks Pembroke is dead at that point is because he saw him in the tank which
No,
you
he gets
find
fed
out.
pills.
Plus, you find out in the cutscenes the tank is there breathing.
Well,
the water.
regardless, I mean,
So
I'm not. This is not a criticism per se.
I'm
because-
just saying I didn't think that was Pembroke that they fed.
Well, it was Pembroke. Watch it again.
Okay.
Whatever. The point is, it is intentionally an unreliable narrator. So that's not like necessarily criticism. I'm just saying that there's a lot going on here, and sometimes it does feel like you're kind of going in circles. But I feel like that may be by design.
Listeners, write in. Let us know, what do you think? Was that Pembroke who got eaten by the eels? That's info@haveyouseen.us.
Yeah. Anyway, lots of eels in this. The eels everywhere.
I mean, it's even the
in your
gates. Yes. And somehow Dane DeHaan, in spite of being dehydrated and weak and sick, is able to pull the toilet from the plumbing on the wall.
Yeah, I was like, Jesus Christ, he's strong.
I mean, I don't know if, Dane DeHaan at full health would be able to do that necessarily.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure he works out. You never know.
Well, I mean,
he's
I'm
got
just
good
saying, I
grip
don't
strength.
think the average person could, who's not.
No, I don't know.
I mean, I could do it.
Oh, well, don't even try. We don't need to demonstrate.
I'm just saying.
Well, just wait until, like, if your toilet breaks and you want a new one, just have Karella rip it out.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and Lockhart takes a lot of punishment in this movie. The other part that gave me pause is when the Baron, Jason Isaacs, like, throws him, like, over a rail, like, onto some stone stairs.
Oh, yeah, and he doesn't break his spine or anything.
Yeah, because I didn't remember the movie from the first time I watched it, like, almost 10 years ago. I was like, oh God, does he finish this movie paralyzed? Because Jesus Christ. And then he, like, starts crawling away. And I'm like, all right, I guess, okay, this is the big action climax, so we'll just roll with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because
it's pretty impressive car accident that he only comes away not even with a broken leg, an unscratched.
Actually, speaking of that, though, another thing that I read from the original script, initially when they show him waking up after the car accident and he realizes he's now a patient, originally he was supposed to be bloody.
Oh,
I don't know why they changed that.
The MPAA.
He was supposed to have blood, like scratches on his face and everything.
no.
And I mean, my interpretation is maybe they changed it to make you question whether the accident even really happened. Because
Maybe.
his leg is not broken. That's clear later on.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't buckled in, like.
Oh yeah, that's right. They show him hitting the ceiling in the car, and
yeah, he's rolling all over the place. And his periodic savior, the driver, apparently, like, crawled away.
Yeah,
relatively unscathed. So
because he runs into him in the scene where he takes Hannah downtown, or to town, rather. Which is an interesting scene.
Yeah, and leaves her alone with a bunch of villagers,
after
young
giving
men.
her beer.
Yeah, I was like, why would you give her beer?
Yeah,
dude?
he gives her beer and then leaves her alone with a bunch of horny 20-year-olds who are leering at her.
Well, it's Europe.
I mean, I don't know what he was. He's not European, though.
Well, I'm saying they do that in Europe.
Yeah, but he doesn't. He's American.
Yeah, he's very well traveled. He's a businessman. He probably knows that sort of thing.
No, I think it's just
like, they do this in Switzerland.
He's so self-absorbed. Again, they cut out the one scene, and I wanted to just mention that with the deleted scenes. There is one scene that they cut out that I really think they should have kept in, where Lockhart is talking to those three people that he's become sort of friends with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the woman from Xerox, the man of Indian descent, and the other man, and he basically says, "Yeah, I'm a really bad person. I fuck people over. Blah blah blah. I'm horrible. Blah blah blah," and sort of seems to experience some insight and regret. They cut that out.
Yeah, and that you make a good point, because that would clarify quite a bit of what's going on in the movie, and it also clarifies the ending, where Lockhart makes the choice. He's not going to get back in the car with the other executives.
No, he's gonna save this girl.
He's gonna chance it. And I think that another theme that comes up in the movie is like the repudiation of these sick systems, because if Lockhart escapes from the creepy Nazi incest poison eel sanitarium, it's like, okay, cool. But then is he just going to go back to his life as like a businessman who's being investigated by the SEC? It's like, wait a minute.
And not to mention that life is the one that caused his father to commit suicide.
Right. The piece of the bit of character information that they did leave in. So it's important.
I mean, not only do they show Lockhart's memory of seeing his dad jump off a bridge when he was a kid, there's a scene later on where Lockhart is imagining that again, but then seeing himself as in his father's place.
Right. Yeah. Which, again, clarifies his decision at the end of the film to ride away all crazy like with his autistic friend. This movie is about autistic excellence.
I mean, honestly, if she really were the product of a brother and sister, I think she'd be a lot more
fucked up.
Yes.
Yeah, but she drank the water.
I mean,
she's fine.
I thought the water makes you live a long time.
Yeah, the water does whatever the script needs it to in the moment.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I'll say this, Mia Goth is quite good at playing women who kind of look like there's something wrong with them. Because she does it here, and I believe she does it in those Ty West horror films, X, Pearl, etc.
Maxine in those.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see why she's had great success as a scream queen.
She also looks. I believe she's one of those people who just looks younger than she. Well, so is DeHaan. They both of them look younger than they really are.
Yeah, like, and in fact, as I was watching this today, I was thinking, like, man, like, DeHaan has like a almost like a DiCaprio quality to him.
Yeah, he really does.
In terms of being like a young male actor, young looking, but who's also like, got talent.
I would say he's Leonardo DiCaprio with darker circles under his eyes, but
yeah, he looks like he's got allergies or something. Dane, if you're out there, I hope you're on lots of Zyrtec and it's working for you, dude. I've been there. But I think we've covered most of the movie. Karella, is there anything in particular that you want to highlight that we maybe haven't covered quite yet?
I think I'm trying.
I mean, we talked about how the gothic wedding scene and everything, and
I mean the wedding scene. I think also I'm not sure. I do feel like the wedding scene also kind of like ties into the Nazi imagery of this film, because it really does remind me a lot of the the what would you call that aspect of Nazism? The weird kind of folkish aspect.
I was going to say putting on a big show. Basically.
Well, this idea of like where the Nazis were very big on like the tradition, this tradition.
Oh
like,
yes, going back to tradition.
This almost like pagan tradition in German culture or something. And the way this whole like thing is set up, kind of Bohemian Grove style, where they're doing this wedding where they're all in these white robes with the candles and everything. I mean,
that's a really good point, because I feel like the kind of warring ideologies here are 21st century capitalism and like this weird trad mindset based on a history that almost didn't really exist. Like, and the Nazis were heavily into that kind of shit. Like you said, the Volkish stuff.
I mean, I guess perhaps this movie is like in some ways ahead of its time, because coming out when was this?
2016.
2016, right before right
before America's descent.
Right before Trump really blast onto the scene, and now we're seeing like this really like this wedding of like hyper late stage capitalism together with like blood and soil. Weird pseudo almost like religious aspects, and this movie
trad bullshit,
is blending those things as well. You can see like how the capitalism is kind of what like is necessary to power this. Well, yeah, I guess you could say like it's almost like saying like you're seeing this like this the Nazi aspects of this film require the capitalism aspect to function, because they're kind of like, they come here and we, it's almost like, I guess, okay, here's the thing. All right. Like, okay, as we're seeing now, where like capitalism we're in late stage capitalism. And of course, like the lies that, these rich people are telling themselves to like, so that they can feel like they have a higher ideology rather than just the raw naked accumulation of wealth and power.
Be comfortable with themselves.
And you're seeing like Silicon Valley basically embracing this idea that like, we are the Ubermenschen who need to save the world by destroying it. Elon Musk's like obsession with Mars being like one aspect of that, but also as we're seeing how they're all embracing just like, naked white supremacy and the idea that like, okay, we, in order to save America and Western civilization, we need to like, we need to do these things. We need to, destroy this village in order to save it, kind of thing. And, you're kind of seeing that in this film as well, where it's like, these people, though, it is all about people who are like super rich and like,
and pretty soulless.
Yeah, the soulless, the winners of capitalism, but realizing that like they've won everything, but at the cost of their souls, and like,
what doth it profit a man? In other words,
what lives do they now need to allow themselves to like sleep?
Right.
Anyway, but like, so that's something that I think like we're seeing like unfold in real time now, in reality.
Yeah, and to jump off of that, and I feel like it's really important for me to say this. I finished this movie feeling quite good, because I think the conclusion that you can draw from it is that, we've all been laboring under one unfair system or another, and it might be time to burn the asylum down, and it's going to be weird and it's going to be scary, but then we can ride away on the bike with our developmentally disabled friend to a better future. So yeah, it did cheer me up quite a bit.
If we still have time, there were two things that have not been mentioned yet that I think are interesting.
Please do.
Or worth drawing attention to. So for the first of these is the fact that even though we're talking about there's this big action scene, Lockhart is being thrown onto stairs, blah blah blah. He's not the one who kills the monster.
No, you're right.
It's Hannah. She kills her father by splitting his face open with an axe.
It's so sick.
So it's actually the daughter who does it. It's not our protagonist who does it.
You are absolutely correct. That is a really important.
So that's kind of a not what you would expect from that kind of scene.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, although I do think it was her, I do think that, to me, the fact that it's the daughter who does it, the daughter who the father just tried to tie down and rape, is very satisfying.
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
Like, it's her right to kill him. That's kind of how it feels.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, because, and on the surface you have like not just the rape revenge angle, but also like her repudiating her entire isolated upbringing. Yeah. And like, again, let me impress upon you, the listener, the pure satisfaction of seeing a withered tyrant patriarch get his shit absolutely split.
Oh, yeah. It's very, you want to cheer when it happens.
Let's all just marinate in that a little. It feels fucking good.
Yeah,
so,
you want to you want to clap and cheer.
Yes, that's another point for this movie. But then the other thing that you wanted to mention.
So the other thing was just an interesting, I guess I'd say, film technique is prior to, or sort of leading up to this big battle, which is the climax, there's an interesting sort of syncopated, I'm not sure what word you'd use, but parallel scenes with Lockhart. It involves both Lockhart and Hannah, but they're in different places. But they're both basically wading into water and then watching eels swarm around. But it's a scene where, Lockhart is sort of going into that underground lair where you see that, Jason Isaacs, Volmer,
Yes.
von Reichmer, whatever you want to call him, has all his, his masks and everything that he does to cover up his burnt face. And Lockhart's exploring that, and then at the same time, they're sort of cutting back and forth between that and Hannah walking into a pool and then menstruating for the first time, which attracts the eels, but they sort of, instead of attacking her and eating her, they almost treat her reverently.
Yeah.
But
I mean, she did swim in a whole bathtub full of them.
Well, you know what
but the way that they goes back and forth between these two scenes, showing them like walking the same, kind of taking steps at the same time, and it has this very pulsing soundtrack that really heightens the tension. I just thought that artistically, I liked that.
Well,
yeah, and that also, I think, reinforces the themes of the film, because we're basically seeing our two youthful protagonists kind of descending like right into the belly of the beast, like this, dark, womb-like, gross space full of eels, and like some critical moment of realization is happening at that point. Like in Hannah's case, it's the onset of womanhood, or what we describe as the onset of womanhood, like first, menarche, first period, which is quite a turn for her, because that makes her all the more vulnerable to her father.
Mm-hmm.
And Lockhart is also starting to put the pieces together about what exactly is happening with this institution. So I think it's a smart and deliberate choice to juxtapose the two, because they're both going through these kind of like journeys of like final knowledge, I guess you could say. But Karella, I think you were going to say something.
Well, I was going to say it's like they say, Volmer's lovely daughter loves swimming in the water.
What?
Delighted squeals came when some eels found her sexual corridor.
Where's that from?
Oh, it's from the unexpurgated screenplay. You didn't see this?
Seriously, what is that from?
It's from the Good Ship Venus, a traditional sea shanty. Although
okay.
I changed it very slightly.
Well, obviously you changed it, yes.
But
boy,
yeah.
Is there anything you can't write?
Well, no.
I'll agree with that.
That's right.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for your time. This was a lot of fun, and I have to say that revisiting this movie for me was quite rewarding. I ended up quite absorbed in it, and I would say that it is very worth seeking out. I believe in terms of streaming, it's on I believe it's on Prime right now, or you can rent it.
And I would like to say, speaking of, Jennifer, thank you for 10 years later actually agreeing to do an episode on it, which I've been trying to just to the audience. It was my idea originally to do an episode on this movie shortly after it came out, and here we are 10 years later.
Oh God, that means I've been doing this show for 10 years. Oh God, I'm going to rip my face off.
9 years. The movie came out 2016. 9 years later, sorry.
I'm going to rip my face off to reveal the withered, like, noseless face underneath. Oh God, I'm so old. But no, thank you for bringing me the topic. I'm sorry it took so long to cover it. But hey, better late than never, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you can show your support by going to patreon.com/haveyouseenthis and make a pledge at the $2 or $5 tier. $5 a month gets the latest episode before everyone else, plus access to our Discord, where we're always arguing about movies. If you'd like to give us a tip, our Ko-Fi link is in the show notes.
Yeah, well, check out the keywords on IMDb to see if it's your cup of eels.